In this video, I'll show you how you can install Radiant on Windows. So we're on the install page, and the first thing to realize is that you need a profile or username or login that has only ASCII characters. So I'd recommend just using the letters A through Z, either in capital or not, and creating a username out of that. So if you have a username that has Chinese or Korean or other characters, that will likely not work. Okay, so once you have a username or profile that has only ASCII characters, we can get started, and the first step is to install R for your system. So R is a programming language, and we'll need that installed first before we can install the other components that will allow us to use Radiant. So if you're on the install page, you'll see this link here. This is for Windows. So if you click that, it'll start a download of the latest version of R. And at this time, that is R 3.3.1. Now it's important as we do the install that we're going to install the program into the directory C R 3.3.1. Okay, and we'll see what that looks like. Now I'm not going to click on here because it's just going to start a download and I already have it on my computer. So it'll look like this if you save it to your desktop. So I'm just going to double click that, and it'll ask me if I want to allow this program to make changes. Now of course I do because I want to install it. So just click yes. And then we'll use some of the defaults. So we'll choose English, click Next, Next again. And so this is an important field. Because as I said, we want to install into C and then R 3.1. So not into program files. This is very, very important. Okay. So I just deleted the part that says program files. And so now when it installs, it's going to install into C R 3.3.1. All right. So once you've made that change, click on Next. And Next again, and just follow the defaults for the remainder. So it's going to create a desktop icon. We'll need that to start, but later on you'll be able to delete that, and then it'll install pretty quickly. So let's just wait for that, and then we'll see the shortcut, and then we'll see how to proceed from there. Right? And again, this is installing into CR and not into program files. Okay, almost done. All right, so it's finished now, and we'll see two icons. Now, almost all of you will have a system that is 64-bit, so let's just open up the R64. Okay, and so this is what R looks like. Now, we're not actually be using R directly. We'll be using Radiant, which builds on top of R. Okay, so let's go back to the install page. And so there are multiple steps you have to go through, but what we're actually going to do is just copy and paste this command. So source, and then this script that I wrote for you that'll install different components. So it'll install RStudio, which we'll need. We'll actually be starting Radiant from RStudio. I would also highly recommend that you install Chrome. If that's not already your default browser, I recommend that that's what you use. Other browsers will also work. Recent versions of Internet Explorer, Safari if you're on Mac, but I highly recommend Chrome. Okay. We'll also, if we want to generate PDF reports, we'll need to install something called Tech, but that'll all happen automatically, and then finally we'll have Radiant installed. But so what you need is to install R, which we just did, and then copy and paste this command, source, and so on, and we're going to go back to R and paste that in here. Okay, and then that's going to start doing a bunch of stuff. In fact, it's going to start installing a bunch of packages. I'm just going to pause the video until that's completed and then show you how we go from there. So you should just let this run until it's completed and ask you for more input. Okay, so the first part of the install has completed. It continues to download and install packages. So you notice here that it's installed a number of packages, unpacked them, and so on. You don't have to worry about this. It's just going through the motions here. And you'll notice that right now it says it's downloading RStudio. So RStudio is a front end to R that makes it a little easier to do a number of things. And one is it's going to allow us to, just from a menu, open up Radiant and update it as well. So it's downloaded RStudio. We're now going to click on yes to let it install. And here we just follow the defaults, right? So the only thing that you really have to be mindful of when installing this installing Radiant is that R needs to be installed in C/R /R 3.3.1. Okay. Other than that, you can pretty much follow all the defaults. And so this again will take a second as it's installing RStudio. And so looks like it's actually speeding up a bit. So we'll just wait until that's completed and then go into the final phase of installing Radiant. Okay. So it looks like it's finished. And so what's next? Another thing to install. Again, this is all automated, so shouldn't cause you any problems. So now it's asking you, do you want to install RTools? Again, this is something that's recommended. So it already selects the one you want, which is the latest one, 3.4. So just click OK. So this is going to take a sec, so I'm just going to pause the video until that's done. All right, so let's install RTools. For the most part, you'll just be able to follow the defaults. Here we go. Okay. Now, one thing you do have to do is select Edit Path, because there's a tool inside RTools that we'll need, and R and Radiant will need to know where to find that, so we're going to have to update the path. It just means we check this box, and then when it shows us what it wants to do, we say that's fine, click Next, and go ahead and install that. Okay, so RTools has finished installing, so let's just click Finish. And now we've got the last step. Okay, so this is a tool that's going to allow us to create PDF reports in Radiant. It's called Miktek. It's not something you'll need to worry about. It'll happen all automatically. But so what we need to do here is just click Yes and type Enter, press Enter, and it'll go ahead and download this and then start the install process. Okay, so it's downloaded Miktek, which is again the last step in the install process. Just click Yes, accepting the conditions, Next, Next. Okay, now I would recommend that you put preferred paper, which is paper size to letter, which is US standard, and click Next. And so again, this will install for a minute or two, and I'll come back when that's done. All right, almost done here. Okay, so now the install on Windows is complete. So now how do we get Radiant up and running? Well, we can close R. We don't need to install a workspace image. In fact, it'll ask you this more commonly. You just say no. And what I'll show you is that I can actually remove these icons here. So we won't be using R directly. We'll be using RStudio to start Radiant. But I don't see RStudio anywhere. So what I'm going to do is pin that to the taskbar. All right, so here's RStudio as we installed previously. I'm going to right-click and then say Pin to Taskbar. All right, so now let's go back to the desktop. And here we go. That's RStudio. Let's open that up. And when we open it, we'll see this add-ins menu. Okay. In this case, it's not showing anything. I'll just do Browse Add-ins and then Radiant. And so we can start Radiant. Okay. So you'll notice that, okay, so this already starts up the browser. In this case, I'm using Chrome on Windows. And this is what you'll see. So if everything went well and you installed Radiant successfully, then as soon as you start up Radiant, it should show you this description of the Diamonds dataset. Okay. Now you notice that there's a bunch of extra menus for statistical analysis and modeling and multivariate analysis, and all of that will be discussed in the classes at Rady. But if this is what you get after you click in RStudio on add-ins, and you'll see now that there's a nice list of all the options. You click on Radiant, and it opens up in your browser. Then you've successfully installed things. Okay. At some point, you might be asked to update Radiant, in which case you'll click on Update Radiant, and it'll update to the latest version. Okay. Now that won't take nearly as much time, of course, as this first time run. This is something that takes a little bit more time, as it needs to download a bunch of things from the internet. But once you've got it installed, everything should be smooth sailing from there. Okay. If you have any issues with install, please post them to the Piazza website.